Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, I was resting secure in the fact that I took nightly backups. I didn't need version control. I took backups. So there I go, coding along for about 6 hours. Everything's going great. And then I reach the point I'm saving very frequently. And then I realize, okay, about 3 hours ago, I made a design decision that completely changed everything. And that was probably a mistake. I just want to go back to when it worked back then. Well, guess what? My undo buffer in my text editor doesn't go back a million saves. Maybe I could have used version control after all. Once upon a time, I was working on a team with other developers. We didn't need version control. How do other people know that we changed something? Just email them. Or no, well, this is the modern age. Just Slack them. Send them a message in Slack. Hey, I made another change, you guys. It does this. You think they're reading that constantly? I hope not. So if they, at the end of the day, want to figure out what the heck did Dave do today anyway, scroll back all through Slack, look at all my messages and see which ones were actually about that. That's probably adequate, right? A month later, when they're looking at a file, and they see, what was he thinking then? Maybe it's a perfectly valid decision, but I have no idea why that line of code is there or what it's supposed to achieve because it appears to do nothing. I'll just look through my Slack history from a month ago. Oh, no, wait, I don't even know it was a month ago. I'll just look through all my Slack histories to see the part where Dave said that he changed that line. Oh, he probably didn't say which line he changed. Shucks. Maybe I should have used version control. Wah, wah. Once upon a time, I made a bunch of changes. Everything was great. So rad. So I just FTP'd it on over to the production server. Everything worked great. 5 minutes later, the emails start coming in from customers. Oh crap, I broke something. I broke something horrible, and, well, there were about 10,000 lines of code in this change. I don't really know where the problem is, because I didn't know the problem was there. Well, that's okay, I'll just revert to the previous. Oh, I can't do that. Wah, wah, maybe I should have used version control. Agree that version control is a good thing? Yes, it is. So, hey, Git does version control, right? It's not the only game in town, but it is very popular. I'm a big fan. That's what we're using in class. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Git and just what the heck is going on. So when we create a Git repository, we saw that it creates some files that are hidden from us. And it keeps track of the entire history of the thing. The entire repo is on your machine all the time, not just the latest commit. Right now, if I type git status, it says nothing to commit, working tree clean. What? So the working tree, or working directory, is what's in your folder right then. That is the current state of things. If you make some changes, let's go to our README. Let's add a description to my README. Oh my gosh. Nope, it didn't. I just hadn't done anything. The first JavaScript project for Xtern Bootcamp. Save. Now I do a git status, and I see I have some changes not staged for commit. So my working directory now includes that change I made to the README. But that is not in my history yet. Git is not yet tracking it. If I want it to track it, I need to add it to Git's index, which I do with the add command. So that takes any changes that are in your working directory and stages them or puts them in the index. Git, add, and then I could say the specific file, or I could say dot, which would be everything in the current tree. Now git status. I see changes to be committed. So the change on my README was in the working directory. Now I've staged it in the index. So Git knows about it and is tracking it. What if I don't commit right away? What if I make another change? First JavaScript project for Extern Bootcamp. Well, I should probably be more specific. 2017, session 3. What now? Where does that change live? That's just in the working directory. I haven't added it yet, right? So if I do a git status, I see changes to be committed, some modifications in README, some changes not staged for commit, some changes in README. So just because you've staged a file doesn't mean that all further changes you make to that file are also staged. If you keep messing with it, you'll have to add it again. So that only happens, the changes only get staged for commit when you run add. So it doesn't just tell it, okay, start paying attention to this file and add every change I ever make. If you keep making changes, those changes are only in your working tree until you add them to the index. Keith?
So once you added them to the index and then you commit to head, how many commits does it record for a single push?
Okay. I'll answer that question in just a second, okay? So I do want all of the changes that I made to be staged, so I will go ahead and add again to get all of them. Now, Git knows about them. They're in my index, but they're not a permanent part of my history yet until I commit them, which is basically just sticking a label on them. Git commit. If you leave off the -m, it'll open up a text editor for you to write your commit message. And if you follow the instructions on the setup, on the Git page here at the very bottom, after these commands that set your identity, there's this command, git config global core editor. That sets it to VS Code. So that way it'll open up code instead of Vim, which if you don't know Vim or VI, will confuse the living heck out of you. That's why that's in the instructions. So, yeah, it opened this up, so I can just type my commit message here. Add a description to the README. Save it, close it, leave all this other stuff here. Close it, and then it committed it. And it threw a nice label on it, 3CDA2A6, which is actually short for, if I look at my log, that big thing, that big hash. That's my commit. So now I have a way to refer to that commit if I really need to. Now all of this that we've done is on my local machine, right? Now when we created a repository on GitHub, we copied a couple of lines that we ran in the terminal, right? The first one was git remote add. So your entire repository lives in your local machine and you never need to sync it with anything else if you don't want to. But if you're afraid that while teaching a class on like a 4-foot-tall stage, the entire desk will fall off the stage and the desk will land on your laptop, and you'll have to call that guy you barely know that you know works for Apple and say, hey, Seth, can I use your employee discount real quick? And, well, you hope all your code doesn't just live on your laptop. You need it to be somewhere else too. Then you can add a remote that you can sync your repository to. Which we did when we pasted in that command, git remote add. We added a remote. We named it origin, git remote add origin. Nothing magic about the name origin, but it's what pretty much everybody uses. if there is one copy of this that's sort of considered the single source of truth, which there doesn't have to be in Git. And then we paste it in a URL. So we have a remote named origin. And then if we want our history to move over there, we do a git push. Now the second line that we copied and pasted from GitHub after git remote add was git push -u origin master. The first time you say push, you have to tell it where to push. But if you put -u in there, then it will know, okay, from now on, we're tracking this branch on the remote. When I say git push, I mean there. So you can just type git push from then on. And since we've already done that, that's all we have to do. But you can have more than one remote. When might you? Well, you might have GitHub, and then you might have a server that you push to or something. So right now, we have all our commits here, but they're not there. Now, could I keep adding more commits without ever pushing them? Totally. Then what happens when I push, to your question? It pushes anything you have locally that isn't on the remote already. So you can push multiple commits at a time with a single push. That just pushes everything that's in your local history that isn't on the remote yet. And the opposite of push is pull. If there are commits there that you don't have, you need to pull. So I'll keep pointing this out the next few times that we commit, just to emphasize what's actually happening. The current state of things, what's currently in your folder, is the working directory or working tree. If you want to add it to your repository, first you need to tell Git about the changes by adding them, staging them, adding them to the index. And then commit will actually add them to your history, stick a label on it, and you'll write a nice message so you can tell what the heck you were doing at that point. And then we sync with a remote. Dig? Yeah, Kenny.
I just want to be sure. So, if like you and I are working on a project and you commit it, and then I have to update mine, when I pull, it'll override whatever I already have on my machine.
It is not quite that simple. So there are a couple of ways you can deal with that. The best way is to work on an entirely separate branch so that when you pull, it's not going to pull straight into your stuff. But even if you do that, basically you have a couple of different things you can do. You can either merge or rebase. What a merge will do is keep your commits as they are and try to play those on top of it. But that'll change, that'll add a new commit to your history. So your commits will be there, the other person's commits will be there, and then there'll be a commit that merges the two. The other way is rebase, which takes what the other person did and then applies your changes one at a time on top of it and actually redoes all of your commits as new commits. Which you want to do depends on circumstances somewhat and is a little beyond what we're going to cover in class, but it's a good question and an interesting topic. Maybe we can point you in the direction of some more information if you want. Yeah, Lily?
People usually stage and commit around the same time.
I mean, most of the time you stage right before you commit. Sometimes I don't. If, for example, well, sometimes it's just an accident. Like I go ahead and stage and then I remember, oh yeah, I need to change this other thing first. And then I might add again. But it's totally possible that you might not use git add dot. You might only stage some of your changes. If, for example, I did a bunch of stuff and I realized, really, I'm working on a couple of different things now, and I want my commits to be atomic. I want them to really only solve one problem. So I will only select a portion of those changes, stage those and commit those, and then do the others separately. Or sometimes, like when Seth and I are working together, we'll start trying to solve some specific problem. Then we'll be like, oh, what if we do this other thing too? And we'll start doing that, and then one of us will stop the other and be like, wait, we should probably finish that other thing first. Then we'll go and do that, but we'll leave our changes in place. Definitely has happened. You dig? Okay, we'll review as we keep committing.